The point of your life isn't to be invincible. In fact, the point of your life is actually to do the opposite, to rely on God. So that way, when you have moments of your weakness, you can be reminded of that being the space and place where God's power is made perfect. There is a different level of heavy expectation that moms carry in our culture. And what I want to say as a quick aside here is, if you're a partner to a mom in here, I want this message to also be for you so that you can be empowered to come alongside the mom in your life there, so you can walk with and connect with and encourage her in these kinds of moments, so that way we can continue to make sure that our moms don't feel alone. Because today we're going to be digging in to some of these ideas about these unrealistic expectations. And it's like, if women or moms are going to live up to them, the question is how? How are you going to be expected to do that? That pressure is so intense. And then when there's a moment where you don't live up to it, it's well, yeah, of course you can't live up to that. That's not the expectations that God wants for you, that Jesus has for you. And so today, I hope that as we spend some time together, you're going to feel permission from God himself to be able to hopefully undo and unsubscribe from some of these unrealistic superpowers that the culture that we're in wants you to have. And so we're just going to look at a couple of these today. The first unrealistic superpower I'd like for us to dive into is this notion that moms are supposed to be invincible. All right, there is a brilliant woman by the name of Dr. Amber Thornton, who has writes for Psychology Today. She has a practice and all this cool stuff. And in addition to that, she has an online social media presence where she and her husband do family stuff, and she talks about parenting and motherhood. And in this Instagram post, she talks about, in this article that I was reading, she talks about posting on her Instagram about potty training their 2-year-old kiddo, right? And this all of a sudden flurry of direct messages kind of come to her inbox, and it's these women and men saying how are you able to do all of this, right? How are you able to potty train your kids, have a full practice, run a social media account, and still have time for your husband, right? And she describes this idea of kind of feeling two different sets of emotions. The first being guilt, because she didn't want to portray this picturesque, perfect life, she has no struggles. And then the second one was a little bit of confusion and consternation, because nobody asked her husband any of those questions. Her husband also had that big social media presence, was in real estate, had done a bunch of flipping. He had just moved them into their new home. He was also potty training their kiddo like a good dad should. And so she kind of realized there's this dichotomy, right? That she would get all these messages of how do you do this, being superwoman. And for the dad, it was just yeah, man, good job. Just contribute kind of where you can. And the more that I am a dad, the longer I live kind of with this title, the more I recognize how powerful this double standard is, right? Whether it's on accident or not, there is an unrealistic expectation in kind of our cultural zeitgeist that men don't often have to deal with. So naturally, the question becomes, if our culture expects moms, whether spiritual or biological, to have some type of invincibility attached to them, how would Jesus respond to this, right? What is God's ask of you as mom today? And I think the best answer to this comes out of 2 Corinthians 9. It says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore," Paul says, "I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me." You see, Paul reminds us here that your life isn't about being flawless, right? The point of your life isn't to be invincible. In fact, the point of your life is actually to do the opposite, to rely on God. So that way, when you have moments of your weakness, you can be reminded of that being the space and place where God's power is made perfect. At that intersection of you realizing you can't have it all together. You shouldn't have it all together. And that expectation is actually a higher expectation for yourself than what the God of the universe has for you. I will say this as a blanket statement that will be true in every situation and all time. You are not smarter than God. So if God doesn't put that standard on you, there's no reason for you to need to keep living it with it by yourself. We know that for our moms, whether they're biological or spiritual mothers, that your calling is best lived out, where you can operate in a space that is freed to show vulnerability and weakness when they arise, not if they arise. right? Because you're all gonna go through something where there's gonna be a crack in your armor that gets showed. And the response to that shouldn't be to throw duct tape over it or figure out a way to sew it shut. It should be to recognize and create space for God's power to come in and materialize in that moment. And for us as partners, this is a beautiful call. This is a beautiful moment and opportunity where we can help contribute to this environment that I'm talking about, right? That when the mom in your life is walking through something hard or tough, right? Where we don't have to try and step in and fix or handle or take care of if that's not what's being asked of us, right? That the most powerful ministry that we can give to the moms in our lives is the ministry of our presence. Just be around, be useful, but be around, right? The idea of being intentional with that is so huge. Moms, you don't need to have it all together. The idea here is that you are to boast in your weakness. You're to boast in needing vulnerability to be a part of your family's dynamic.